Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and if you're new to my channel, I create daily breakthrough videos for you to learn really powerful tools to upgrade your life and your relationships by applying all these different personal development techniques to the subconscious mind where real change takes place. So in this video today, we're going to talk a lot about how to build self-trust. And I'm going to go through 7 key tips that are really important to keep in mind when you want to rebuild the trust and really repair the relationship you have to yourself. And quite honestly, if we don't get the relationship to ourselves right in life, it's extremely difficult to get our relationships right with other people because our relationship to ourselves is our primary relationship. And if we have really unhealed patterns, really painful patterns, unfair patterns, we're betraying ourselves, disrespecting our own boundaries, putting ourselves down in our internal dialogue, then that baggage that we have in our first and primary relationship literally directly carries over into our relationships with other individuals in a number of different ways. So let's start by talking about the first tool. Well, the first tool is all about congruency and consistency. This is a really simple one. We basically base trust off of congruency. So if what we say and what we do line up, we naturally feel trust. Just like if you had somebody say to you, I'm building a business in personal development, but then like you see that they work 40 hours in a lab somewhere, you're like, okay, well, you tell me one thing, but your actions or your lifestyle shows something different. They don't line up. They're incongruent. And we lose trust as a byproduct of that. And then consistency is about trust too. Does somebody say they're going to support us and they actually show up consistently? So if we don't have those 2 key ingredients sort of go together as our number one tool in the relationship to ourselves, if we say we're going to go to the gym after work and we don't, if we say we're going to get up early tomorrow and we don't set the alarm, if we say we're going to do something and we don't show up for ourselves, and if there's a consistency element lacking, that actually diminishes the self-trust we have in relationship to ourselves over time. So really important things. And this doesn't mean that you have to like put all this pressure on yourself and bear down and all of a sudden be perfect with showing up with everything. Something you can also do as a strategy is just pivot a little bit. Like if you keep setting these huge lofty goals and then you can't show up for them because there's so much pressure there, you can also just pivot your goals and literally create lighter goals and break things down into smaller chunks and see that consistency and momentum build over time. And that's a great strategy to be able to repair the self-trust in relationship to you, but also make moves towards like creating and achieving the things that you desire to in life. Tool number 2, consideration. Another major factor when it comes to trust is, does somebody else take us into consideration? Do we feel like when somebody makes a choice to, spend the money in the joint bank account with our husband or wife or spouse or whatever it might be, did they think about how that would affect us too? Did they ask us? Did they bring us into that decision-making process, or did they just do it? And if we don't have consideration when we make choices that actually consider us and our needs and the way that we feel, then we're constantly going to wear away at the trust in the relationship to ourselves. So an example of this could be, your neighbor asks you, hey, can you help me move all my stuff tomorrow? And maybe you have two children. Maybe you have, a huge work deadline coming up the next day. Maybe you've been sleeping poorly all week. You're starting to get sick. You have all this stuff going on in your life, but because your neighbor asked you, you feel just this impending pressure to just show up and say yes. But if you didn't consider yourself and what was going on in your life at the time and what your needs are, like, wow, I actually need to rest tomorrow and like catch up so that I can feel good about meeting the deadline on Monday or whatever it might be, then you didn't take yourself into consideration. You just said yes. And basically it's a violation of your own feelings and needs, which means that's going to wear away at your trust in the relationship to yourself, which means to correct that, you actually have to show up and create some changes there in that area and be able to, when you make choices and say yes to a commitment on a Friday or to assist somebody on a Saturday or to a new job or a new opportunity, whatever it might be, you have to actively consider what you desire, what your needs are, and like how you're feeling at that time. And if you want to do a really deep dive into understanding your needs, which is such an important part of like being able to consider yourself and build that self-trust, we have a 7-day free trial, and the link is in the description box below. And the 7-day free trial gives you access to an entire course about repairing trust in relationships externally and in the relationship to yourself. And there's also a very in-depth personality needs course that helps you learn about your needs, learn how to communicate your needs with our communications courses. There's a 7-day free trial to all 45 different courses we have inside of the Personal Development School. And that link is in the description box below, so you can check that out. And I also do 4 live webinars a week with our students in there, by the way, as well. So there's lots of events, lots of time for meeting like-minded people, also working on themselves. Anyways, that's step 2. Tool number 3 is learning to have boundaries. Boundaries goes in the same sort of like category as consideration. If we don't state our boundaries, if we don't speak up for something, and this can even just be like our mental, emotional boundaries, like learning to speak up about our thoughts, opinions, ideas, beliefs about things. If we don't have our boundaries, then we're actively violating our boundaries by making them null and void, right? The moment you don't communicate about something, and every time we disregard a boundary in the relationship to ourselves, it's a form of self-betrayal. And what can be really difficult is when we don't even know that we have boundaries. And by the way, we have a really in-depth course on boundaries as well inside PDS. But if we don't know that we have boundaries, or we don't communicate a boundary, then you have to imagine this. If this was somebody outside of you, imagine that you have a romantic partner in a relationship. And you're like, oh, that person's violating my boundary. They're making me feel uncomfortable. And your romantic partner says to you, who cares? Don't talk about it. Nobody wants to hear about it. Just keep your mouth shut. That would be such a painful thing to go through. And if we are doing that in the relationship to ourselves, we have a boundary, we have a feeling something doesn't feel right for us, and we just push it down and just say, who cares? And we ignore it, and we ignore that in relationship to self, it's going to create the same feeling of diminished self-trust and a big violation in our primary relationship, being the relationship to ourselves. Really important to have those boundaries. Number 4 is learning to prioritize yourself. A lot of people who struggle with self-trust also consistently and pervasively put themselves last on the totem pole in life. It's like the kids' needs come first, then your spouse's needs come second, then your needs from what people expect from you at work comes third, then your needs from your relatives come fourth, then your needs from your friends come fifth, then your needs for to have the house tidy and taken care of come sixth. And you're so far down the totem pole in terms of what you need to self-love, to show up for yourself, to care for yourself, to like recharge, to replenish, and whatever that might be, by tuning in and knowing what replenishes you, knowing your love languages in the relationship to yourself. You're so far down that totem pole that it's like, you have to remember, this would be no different than having a romantic relationship, and they put everybody else in the whole world above you, everything else in the whole world above you. It's like work and friends and family and other people, and and you're so far down that totem pole, you're not going to trust them to be looking out for you, to having your back, to share, like to just share things with you, to connect with you. And if we're doing that in the relationship to ourselves, ouch, definitely will wear away at self-trust as well. Number 5, knowing yourself and your needs. If we don't know who we are, and we don't know what our needs are and what our purpose is, like what makes us feel like we have a sense of meaning in life, and we haven't identified that, and we haven't created tools and strategies to support ourselves in that, and we don't have our needs for what recharges us, for what makes us feel good, for what makes us feel connected, to what makes us feel certain and in control of our lives, and all these different things, if we don't have that in order, then we're naturally going to be more likely to violate our own needs, because we don't know what they are. They're not conscious. And so then our subconscious mind is sort of left to its own devices, which can end up meeting its needs in unhealthy forms, or can end up just kind of like disregarding needs at different points in time without you recognizing. And so it's so important that we learn to know ourselves and our needs, so that we can protect ourselves and our needs. And again, if you want to do a deep dive into that, we have a whole course really in depth on all of our needs, how to identify them, questionnaires, worksheets, workbooks, all this stuff. It's called Discover, Embrace, and Fulfill Your Personal Needs. You can check that course out inside PDS as well. And number 6 here is learning to treat your feelings with care. If we have a relationship to somebody outside of us and they shame our feelings, they disregard our feelings, they ignore our feelings, we don't trust them quite the same that we would for somebody who actually like is present with our feelings, listens to our feelings, helps us work through our feelings. And again, turn that inward, How do we treat our own feelings in the relationship to ourselves? Do we ignore and shame ourselves for having feelings? Oh, what's wrong with you that you're sad? Get over it. It's fine. Or are we like, oh, I'm feeling upset. Let me work through this. Let me identify what is upsetting me and why. What is the root cause? What's missing from my life? And how can I show up for that thing? What painful narrative have I been running all day? And how can I pivot that and question it instead of just telling myself the story about how I'm never going to get the job that I want. I'm never going to be in the career path I want. I'm never going to have the financial stability. Well, no wonder you're in pain because you're hurting yourself in your internal dialogue. So your feelings are there to let you know, ouch, something's out of alignment. And we have to treat our feelings with care and with respect. And we have to consider them and go inward and solve for the problem that's creating the negative output that our feelings are there to give us feedback about. And so when we can treat our feelings with care and pivot there, really powerful. And we're building that trust in ourselves instead of diminishing it by not doing this. And last but not least, number 7, maybe one of our most important ones, is be aware of your internal dialogue and the way you speak to yourself. If somebody spoke to you all day, the way you speak to yourself inside of your mind, inside of your internal dialogue and your thinking all throughout the day, how would you feel towards that person? Would you feel like, oh, this person respects me, they're kind to me, I can trust them, I can rely on them, I can make a mistake and feel like they have my back? Or would you feel like, oh my gosh, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get put, the put down, I'm going to be in trouble, I'm going to get punished, I'm going to get, um, criticized really in mean and cruel ways. And literally, the amount of trust we have in the relationship to ourselves has a lot to do with our internal dialogue. So upgrade your internal dialogue, show up for your internal dialogue, be kind to yourself, be compassionate to yourself, make a mistake and be accountable, but without beating yourself up. And that actually moves you faster towards the solution, which is the accountable solution, the breakthrough you need to have, instead of just feeding the problem by just beating yourself up for it and distracting yourself from being able to create a solution. So these are 7 really important places to start. There's so much more we can go into this. Again, if you want to do a deeper dive, really great courses that we're mentioning here: Discover, Embrace, and Fulfill Your Personal Needs, 7-day free trial for all of these courses, the Boundaries course, the Skyrocket Your Self-Esteem course is really helpful, and then the Repair Trust. Also, the self-love course can be really beneficial for this as well, really repairing that relationship to yourself, learning to have self-compassion, self-forgiveness, and respect towards yourself as well. So you can check those all out. They're all in the school. They all come with a 7-day free trial. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.